Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Michael Quirke, and I want to talk with you today about male survivors of sexual abuse and share with you some coping strategies that you can use. Now, it's estimated that 1 in 6 men has been sexually abused, but that number is probably quite low. It's suspected that the real number is actually much higher because only about 16% of men with documented abuse think of it and define it in those terms. Rationalization, minimization, and compartmentalization seem to play a huge role in whether or not men even identify themselves as having experienced abuse. As best we can tell, research indicates that most men stay completely silent throughout the course of their lives and rarely tell even a single human being about their sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is a traumatic experience. It's one that profoundly affects any person, regardless of their gender. While it's essential to recognize and address the experiences of all survivors, male survivors of sexual abuse often face unique challenges in coping with their trauma. The prevailing societal norms and stereotypes that depict males as strong, invulnerable, these can make it even more challenging for male survivors to come forward. It makes it harder for them to seek help and cope with the aftermath of abuse. This video explores the coping strategies employed by male survivors of sexual abuse, and I'm going to highlight the importance of support, therapy, self-care, and advocacy in your healing journey. Now, a quick word. I'm a therapist. I'm a licensed therapist. I am not your therapist. The goal of this video is to provide you with general information. It is very important that you take everything that you hear me say and take it to a qualified, licensed mental health professional. That way you can really assess whether what I'm saying and some of the ideas that I'm sharing make sense for your particular life and your particular circumstances. So let's talk now about male survivors of sexual abuse and some coping strategies you can use if that's you. One of the first and most critical steps in coping with sexual abuse for male survivors of sexual abuse is breaking your silence. Due to our society's expectations and enduring stereotypes, most male survivors suffer in absolute crushing isolation and silence. And this is because men believe and know from experience that it's likely that they're going to be mocked or that their masculinity will be questioned and undermined. However, seeking support is absolutely essential in your healing process. Male survivors can start by confiding in a trusted friend or a family member who can provide emotional support and empathy. In addition, support groups for male survivors of sexual abuse offer a safe space where individuals can share their personal experiences, where they can connect with other people who face similar challenges and receive validation and understanding. Now, I want to express a word of caution to you. Please be wise if you choose to disclose. One of the most shocking things that I've learned in my practice, and I see it all the time, is how poorly men are treated when they disclose abuse of any kind. I hear horror stories from my clients about being dismissed, minimized, ridiculed, even verbally attacked by the very people that they thought that they could trust. Sadly, these guys have recounted the hostility that people unleash towards them when they talk about what happened to them. This includes wives, girlfriends, male friends, and police. And horribly, I've even heard this told about therapists who heaped additional forms of shame, judgment, or abuse on some of the men that I've worked with. So, if you're thinking of telling someone for the very first time, do whatever you can to ascertain whether or not this person is likely to treat you with kindness, care, and the gentleness you deserve. Just to emphasize, you really want to get a sense, and this is especially the case if you're working with a medical provider or a mental health care worker, you really want to get a sense of how well they deal with these issues before you dive in and start opening yourself up. But remember, this is really only one side of the coin. It's the darker side of the coin that I'm describing. And I'll tell you, it has been deeply moving to hear some of my male clients describe to me how absolutely stunned they were by the love, support, and respect that they encountered. You can see it really touches me. Many of the guys that I work with have been completely shocked by the support that they've received. And they've shared with me that they wish that they told somebody sooner. Even though they intellectually expected it, they really had no idea of the reality of how kind and wise some of their friends and partners actually were. Professional support is absolutely vital in terms of helping you cope with your trauma. Therapists who are trained in trauma informed treatment can provide you with a safe and confidential environment in which you can explore your feelings, you can help resolve them, and you can develop coping strategies. There are therapeutic approaches of all kinds. So, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR, internal family systems, sensory motor psychotherapy, other specialized forms of trauma treatment have been proven effective in helping to process traumatic experiences and to reduce the impact that symptoms like anxiety, depression, and PTSD symptoms are having on you. So let's talk a little bit now about self care and self compassion for you if you're a male survivor of sexual abuse. So, if you are, you know that male survivors of sexual abuse often struggle with feelings of shame. They struggle with feelings of guilt and, and sadly, self blame. If this is you that I'm describing, it's crucial for you to practice self care and to do it in a self compassionate way. Self care involves your taking deliberate steps to nurture your physical, emotional, and your mental well being. So, this can include activities like exercise, meditation, journaling, art, engaging in hobbies that stoke your joy and fill you with physical, mental, and emotional relaxation. Self compassion practices will prove equally essential in your coping process. Male survivors of sexual abuse need to recognize that they're not to blame for the abuse they experienced. Uprooting deep guilt, deep shame is often a challenge because these deep emotional roots can entangle themselves in your psyche and in your relationship patterns and habits. So you've got to learn to treat yourself with the same gentleness, kindness, understanding, and forgiveness that you would offer to someone who is a true brother facing a similar situation. It's going to take practice, but by questioning the validity of your self-judging, self-critical thoughts, by practicing self-compassion, by being kind to yourself intentionally, you can reduce the negative impact of shame and guilt on your mental and emotional health. Now, I also want you to educate yourself about male sexual abuse. And that's because education and advocacy often play significant roles in helping male survivors cope with sexual abuse. If you understand the dynamics of abuse and its psychological effects and the recovery process, that understanding can empower you to take control of your healing journey. Education can help you recognize intellectually that you're not alone in the experiences that you've had. This is often a great source of validation and a great relief for many of the men that I work with. But again, I want to offer another word of caution to you. Many of my clients have had to bite size their learning about this topic of male sexual abuse. Books, movies, research have been too emotionally activating for them at times. So they have to titrate, they have to take small bites when it comes to their exposure to these materials to make sure that they just don't get overwhelmed. Furthermore, there's another important thing that's helped some of the guys I've worked with, and that's advocacy. Advocacy efforts that are aimed at raising awareness about male sexual abuse have helped quite a few of my male clients. They've gotten involved and they feel better knowing that they have contributed to changing societal attitudes and to reducing the stigma. When society acknowledges the prevalence of male sexual abuse and provides support and resources, it becomes easier for every single survivor to come forward and to seek help, to heal without fear of judgment or disbelief. And I'm heartened to say that I've really seen this pick up steam. I've seen this stigma reduce, particularly over the last 5 to 10 years. Many of the younger men that I work with who are in their 20s and 30s, for example, they're so courageous. They've walked right into my office right off the bat and even contacted me right out of the gate, identifying themselves as sexual abuse survivors and putting that front and center in terms of what they're looking to work on in their therapy. So that's an enormous change. And interestingly, when I talk to other trauma specialists, and for example, recently, the other day, I spoke to somebody who specializes in treating male sexual abuse. That's specifically pretty much all that he does in his clinical practice. He's seeing the same thing. So we were both discussed how delighted we are to see that the culture is actually really beginning to deal with this much better. Let's talk about developing your coping strategies. If you're a male survivor of sexual abuse, then what has probably happened is that you've developed coping strategies to deal with the emotional and the psychological aftermath of your trauma. And some of those may not be so helpful or effective. And so I want to share with you now some of the strategies that I've helped many of the guys that I work with to develop. Emotional regulation. Here, we're talking about learning to identify and manage your intense emotions. That's a crucial step. And frankly, there's a lot of men, women too, but men can often struggle with this step, with just simply recognizing their emotions. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that perhaps I'll go through in another video. But this is a step that involves mindfulness. It involves paying attention and developing your ability to pay attention to your emotions. So I'm talking about mindfulness techniques, um, breathing exercises, movement exercises, grounding exercises to help you stay present and avoid emotional overwhelm. Next, it is very important that you work on establishing healthy boundaries. Setting healthy boundaries in relationships is fundamental. It's essential for you when it comes to protecting yourself from further harm and to ensure your own emotional safety. Self-expression is key. Finding healthy outlets for yourself for your self-expression. Here I'm talking about things like art, music, writing, deep open conversation can help you to process your emotions and your thoughts. See, you want to work on building resilience. And resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity. It's the ability to pick yourself up when you fall down, when you hit a bump in the road and you get knocked over or you trip over. You can develop resilience by focusing on your strengths, by prioritizing your personal growth, by setting clear goals, and by celebrating your achievements. Now, you also want to seek resolution. Some survivors find closure through the criminal justice system. Some do not. Some embrace restorative justice organizations and processes, uh, or writing letters to their abusers. And this might be whether or not you decide to send them. Often that is a complicated discussion for many of the guys that I work with. Now let's talk about the male survivor of sexual abuse and the role of relationships in your life. Healthy relationships are absolutely crucial for developing the coping and healing process of male survivors of sexual abuse. Building and maintaining supportive, trusting, honest, open relationships can provide you with a significant source of strength and validation. They are the antidote to toxic shame. However, it's also very important that you be selective about whom you choose to disclose your experiences to. As I mentioned earlier, not everybody is going to react with empathy and understanding. That is not the world that we live in. So please have realistic expectations and recognitions of who you have in your life and what their capacity is. You don't want to open yourself up to the wrong person and be traumatized again. Supportive relationships can come from a host of various sources. These include friends, family, your romantic partners, and definitely from therapists. It's essential for you to communicate your needs and boundaries in every single one of these relationships. It's important to seek help from professionals if you encounter any challenges related to trust, intimacy, or communication. Now, I'll say a word about that. It's very likely that that is the case. That's often the hallmark of anybody who's experienced any kind of relational trauma in their lives, and sexual abuse qualifies as a relational trauma. Here's what I've seen. Coping with sexual abuse is a challenging, deeply personal journey for male survivors. Breaking your silence, seeking support, practicing self-care and self-compassion, educating yourself, and developing your coping strategies, getting them really solid. These are all essential steps in your healing process. Additionally, as I mentioned, advocacy efforts might be appropriate for you. You might want to raise awareness, help to change our culture when it comes to dealing in a more helpful way with male sexual abuse. You might want to do your part in terms of challenging the brutal societal stereotypes that can contribute to creating a more supportive and empathic environment for all survivors. It's important to remember, I say this over and over again. You'll see this in some of my other videos. So pardon me if I'm repeating myself. Healing is not a linear journey. It doesn't exactly work that way for most men. On the road to healing the effects of sexual abuse, every single survivor's journey is unique. And what works as a coping strategy for one person is not going to be the same for the other. And that's true of therapists, it's true of trauma treatment modalities. Therefore, flexibility, individualized approaches are key in helping you to helping male survivors of sexual abuse on their path towards recovery and resilience. By fostering and understanding empathy and support, we can all play a role that's pivotal in helping men reclaim their lives and heal from the trauma of sexual abuse. So I hope that something I've said here has been helpful for you. If so, please have a look around my YouTube channel. You might want to share this video, like or subscribe. I appreciate it if you would. You're also welcome to have a look at my website. I've got a pretty extensively developed trauma treatment blog. And of course, if you are looking for information or help recovering from trauma, you're going to find a lot of information on my site. And I truly hope it helps you. So, again, thank you so much for your time and your attention. And feel free to let someone else know about this video. Send them the link if you think it might be helpful for them. Okay, thanks so much and best of luck to you.